Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think, thank you so much, Ankit, for introducing the subject. I am really very happy and feeling proud to be here amongst you all to speak to you about the very vibrant topic, which is from restraint to response, and especially so in the backdrop of Operational Sindoor. Coming from the ground zero, and that is Northern Command, which actually witnessed the entire kinetic actions, especially in the land domain, and it was the hub of all activities. It would be my endeavor to provide you the perspective of Northern Command related to this Operation Sindoor. India, along the western borders, shares almost 4,320 kilometers of borders, and out of which, as far as the Northern Command is concerned, it has been entrusted with the responsibility to not only ensure the territorial integrity, but also ensure effective domination of 121 kilometers of AGPL, which is along the Saltoro Ridge and Siachen Glacier, 772 kilometers of line of control, and just about 12 kilometers of IB sector, which moves towards the Jammu. And I'm not mentioning anything about 832 kilometers of line of actual control, which is also my responsibility. But today, that is out of context. Now, this entire area of line of control, in fact, over many decades, has witnessed very intense violence, be it cross-border actions, ceasefire violations, or even the infiltration. And especially so, this has been happening since Pakistan adopted the strategy of proxy war against India since 1990s. And to deal with this, we have always been responding in the same domain with a maybe higher intensity, but however, all these actions were limited in the tactical domain and failed to create a deterrence at the strategic level. While at the tactical level, we did have the deterrence effect. Despite the defeat in 4 major wars, as far as Pakistan is concerned, and near war-like situation which we had, which led to the mobilization of forces during Operation Pahalgam, Pakistan army continues to remain a revisionist army and refuses to change the status quo. And while this is what has been quoted by Christine Fair in her book, Fighting to the End. And over 7 decades of animosity between India and Pakistan, both the countries have displayed tremendous capability, not only in the conventional domain, in sub-conventional domain, and also in the nuclear domain. And all these capabilities, in fact, deny the confidence to both the nations to go and take the actions which may be relevant to create the deterrence. But however, despite the so-called full spectrum deterrence, despite the capability which both the countries have demonstrated, India's surgical strike post-Uri, Balakot, aerial strike post-Pulwama, and Operation Sindoor have not only demonstrated the national resolve to deal with the terror actions, but it has also demonstrated the military capability to operate below the conventional domain and exploit this particular space. Operation Sindoor has demonstrated our capability to execute a swift and a very decisive response, especially after this gruesome attack in Paisar and Pahalgam, in which 26 innocent lives were lost. And this was, in fact, a direct provocation by the Pakistan Army Chief, Munir, who, in a provocative speech on 16th of April in Islamabad, not only endorsed the two-nation theory, but also accepted that Kashmir continues to be the jugular vein. And this was a direct incitement to not only the terrorists, but also the Pakistan army, which was handling this entire terror strike. At this stage, I am also reminded of the poem by Ramdhari Singh Dinkar. I will quote, which is from Veer. सच है विपत्ति जब आती है कायरों को ही दहलाती है सूरमा नहीं विचलित होते क्षण एक नहीं धीरज खोते विघ्नों को गले लगाते हैं कांटों में राह बनाते हैं I think soon after this terror strike came very specific and very clear political guidelines and a clear strategic directions which were given to all of us. And the directions were very clear to undertake punitive strikes through precision engagement and target the perpetrators of this heinous crime and also create a deterrence in the mind of the Pakistan and Pakistan army to deter him from such actions in future and clearly state and clearly demonstrate the resolve of the nation to deal with this terror with a policy of zero tolerance to terror. And when this particular direction came, we had, in fact, three areas to address. One was the targeting matrix, in which Northern Command was given the responsibility to target 7 camps out of the 9 camps which were to be struck with the precision engagement. And the entire cycle of working out the entire intelligence around it, the vectors which had to be used, all this was a huge planning process. That was one domain in which we were working. And the second domain was the retaliation dynamics, which was also mentioned by Vice Chief of Army Staff about the retaliation dynamics. We were very clear that moment something is done as far as Pakistan is concerned, the immediate retaliation, immediate ripples are going to be felt along the line of control. And we were very well prepared to deal with this dimension. We had catered for all the possible escalation dimension along the line of control. All domains were taken care of. So that was the second aspect which we had to deal with, because we knew very well that this area of line of control is going to be the battleground of a whole lot of kinetic actions. And the third area was related to the counter-terror operations and the operations in hinterland. Under no circumstances, strategy was not to compromise with the ongoing operations as far as the hinterland is concerned, in which we were on a hunt for all the Pakistani terrorists who had infiltrated into our area, and especially hunting for those 3 terrorists who had conducted this strike. So this was also inherent in our strategy of our retaliation. And if I have to give you the entire expanse of the Operation Sindoor, while in sequence and in the time frame was covered by Vice Chief of Army Staff, but I would like to in fact, distinctly cover in 3 parts. The part 1 was the period which was between the terror strike and the TOT. That was the time on target, which was 7th. And during this period, there was आक्रोश में आक्रोश था और एक बदले की भावना थी. And this was very well, in fact, communicated to our media at that period, at that point of time. Media was very well communicating, strategic communication was on as far as not only the domestic community was concerned, even the international community was very well aware that there is going to be a badla as far as this particular heinous crime was concerned. While this was one thing which is on, diplomatic offensive, and I think the government took a very bold decision to hold this entire Indus Water Treaty in abeyance. While this was happening in the other domain, as far as the military domain was concerned, military domain was intricately involved in the entire planning process. While the targets were very carefully selected, we wanted to keep it to the jus ad bellum, that is the targeting of the terror infrastructure, and not restricting it to the line of control, taking it even to the IB sector and going deeper into the territory of Pakistan. And to convey a very clear resolve and clear message that we are not restricted as far as when it comes to targeting of the terror infrastructure is concerned. While that was one part of it, it was a huge planning which was centered around the tri-service domain. While the targeting responsibility, there was a land domain in which Northern Command had the responsibility for 7 targets, Air Force had the responsibility of the 2 targets, that is Murid Ke and Bawalpur. Navy also had its own role to play when it came to the escalation dominance. So that was the way the tri-service synergy had to be involved. We had to, in Northern Command, cater for all cycles of escalation, which I mentioned, to deal with that offensive or the violence and the kinetic domain along the line of control. And while this had to happen, I had to also cater for huge protection measures so that there is a minimum casualty to our soldiers who are going to deal with this entire offensive cycle. So that was one domain, that is from the time of the incident to the time of the targeting. And time over target, which was 7th of May 0105, I think it was a master stroke in terms of the timing, in terms of the planning process, and the way all targets were executed concurrently in the same time. It was, in fact, a treat to, while we were on the edge, whether it will happen in the manner it has been desired or not happen, we were on the edge in our respective war rooms. But I think our hats off to the professional capability of each and every soldier who was involved in this targeting. They did a fantastic, execution of this entire process. Now, the time on target, while targeting was one aspect, the other important aspect was the post-strike damage assessment. And in fact, that is an art which we as professionals have learned in this Operation Sindoor. How exactly, what type of redundancy, how many vectors are required, I think that was a very, very good as far as the lesson learned in Operation Sindoor related to the post-strike damage assessment and understanding this as an art. And in these selection of targets, while the targets as far as the, Murid Ke and Bawalpur are concerned, they were located in the IB sector, the identification and the working out the coordinates was much easier. But the targets opposite Northern Command in this LC sector were very difficult. All these terror camps were very well tucked into the folds of the hills and very well concealed. It was really very, while the depth may have been lesser, but it was very difficult to gather the intelligence, whether it was a technical intelligence or whether it was the human intelligence, and also selection of the various points of impacts within those targets was a huge challenge. So this was about the conflict spectrum as far as the Operation Sindoor was concerned. There's one area which has not got that kind of a glamorous coverage was the ceasefire violations and the intense ceasefire violations which were happening on the line of control. Came the strike at 0105, within 30 minutes, the firing on the line of control had started. And while we had to maintain surprise related to the time of targeting, but it was a big challenge to keep each and every soldier who was there in the bunker, to keep him ready to retaliate moment the fire opens. So we had to induce that level of alertness, not for that particular day. They were alert from 22nd of April. So that is the level of alertness each and every soldier was in when he was sitting in the bunker to deal with the ceasefire violations along the line of control. And these ceasefire violations were so intense that, and it was moving as per the plan which I had worked out. and we ensured that for every round fired by Pakistan, we retaliated with minimum 3 to 4 rounds. Almost about more than 30,000 rounds of mortar and artillery put together were fired, more than 3 lakhs of all small arms fire, which was done to deal with this line of control violations. Pakistan was not only undertaking these firings. As per his design, he also wanted to undertake some bit of infiltration. Maybe he also had a plan of concurrently doing some cross-border actions. We were prepared for it. In fact, there were 4 such attempts along the line of control, and all 4 were identified. Despite the level of violence which was happening, we detected them and we foiled them. In fact, those terrorists who were trying to infiltrate, or maybe the SSC soldiers who were trying to infiltrate, they were eliminated. And other than that, we had also catered for, in fact, destruction, other than these terror camps, destruction of the 8 launch pads which were located in the tactical depth. They were also part of my plan, and because of the way the firing was happening, I was able to, in fact, destroy 4 launch pads which were there in those 88 hours of kinetic operations which was happening. If I had maybe, and if the operations had gone for maybe 100 hours, I think the balance 4 launch pads would also have been destroyed. But we'll wait for that opportunity to come next time. Now, while Operation Sindoor post this entire strike was over for the rest of the nation, people thought that justice has been done, but we were very clear. We were into the emotions of those families who had lost their near and dear ones in that Baisaran attack, those 26 innocent lives and their families. Their eyes were still dry. They were still waiting for that final justice to be done. And that justice had to be done only after elimination of those 3 terrorists who were involved in this heinous attack. We were on a hunt for them from 22nd of April. We did not leave them. We hunted them in the forest of Hapatnar. We chased them into the areas of Taral and finally surrounded them in this forest of Dachigam. It was a 97 days of day and night intense operations. You will be surprised to understand the way the entire dynamics of the operations of terrorists in the hinterland has changed. They no more operate from the built-up areas. They are operating in the hill areas, jungles, caves, and that creates a huge challenge. Gone are the days when we had the specific intelligence and we could go and surround a house and thereafter eliminate the terrorists in about 6 to 12 hours. Now the operations have to be conducted in these areas for durations which go beyond 30-odd days. So that is the intensity with which we were chasing them, and hats off to our security forces in the joint operations which we did with the intelligence agencies, JKP, CRPF, and the security forces, and also the special forces who eliminated them right in their den and not gave them even an opportunity to pick up their weapon. So that is the way these surgical operations were conducted. And the biggest satisfaction we on ground got when we received, after the killing of those terrorists, some of the families of those who lost their lives, they called us up and finally gave that, beta, aap logon ne final justice abhi diya hai. So that is the emotion, and for us, the immense satisfaction we got from that particular call, I think it is matchless. No words can explain that type of an emotion and that type of a satisfaction which every soldier got. At this stage, may I have a movie? In fact, maybe we have created a movie to just summarize the entire aspect of Operation Sindoor in which Northern Command was involved. Kindly play the movie.
ये कश्मीर में 90 के दशक के बाद सबसे बड़ी टारगेट किलिंग है
और ऐसे में काफी भगदड़ पहलगाम इलाके में जो है वो मची हुई है।
टोटल 6 जगह पे पाकिस्तान में 24 इम्पैक्ट्स हुए हैं भारत की तरफ से।
After my communication with the Pak DGMO, he proposed that we cease hostilities.
So as our Honorable Laksha Mantri today morning had mentioned that all this is done not with one day's preparation. It's a long duration and every day is a toil in these hard and harsh weathers and the climatic conditions and operational scenario. And that's how we deliver. As far as Indian Army is concerned, Chief has already given out his very clear roadmap for decade of transformation. And we are working from 2023 to 2037 to achieve this decade of transformation. And this decade of transformation is being achieved under 5 pillars. One is jointness and integration. And I think in future, we are working towards it, and more, I think the theaterization is the requirement of the day as far as the conduct of future warfare is concerned. The second is forced restructuring. And in forced restructuring, post-Operation Sindoor, we have already started undertaking a whole lot of changes in the organization. Bhairo, Agniban, and even the All-Arms Brigade, which is coming up. These are the transformation which is being undertaken as far as the organization restructuring is concerned. Systems and processes are being addressed. We are also looking at modernization and technological infusion, and a whole lot of HR issues are also being addressed. And this entire decade of transformation. Over a period of 10 years, we look at 5 years of consolidation, and thereafter next 10 years of achieving the excellence, which is coinciding with our vision of our Prime Minister, which is of Viksit Bharat 2047. Lastly, if I have to, highlight what are the takeaways and what are the lessons learned as far as the Operation Sindoor is concerned. First and foremost, I think we have established a new normal. And the new normal is related to this punitive strike with precision engagement is what we will do. The terror attacks will not be tolerated. The second is this superior tri-service synergy which we have been able to demonstrate as far as the entire planning and the execution is concerned. And I think with theaterization happening, we will achieve much better results in times to come when it comes to the conventional conflict. The third was related to the air defense and the EW aspects. And I think the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister, which was highlighted from the podium on 15th of August, Sudarshan Chakra, and the immediate demonstration of that capability achieved by DRDO of integrated air defense weapon system, which looks at integration of QRSAM, Vishwarats, and atomic and the energy weapons which are integrated to achieve that capability. I think that's a step in the right direction. The third is Atmanirbharta. I think that has been discussed quite in detail today during the course of discussions today. And I think finally it will be the Sashakt, Surakshit, and Atmanirbhar which will give us the capability to fight the future wars. The core tenets of the response strategy have already been defined in the political resolve and the political directions which have come and has been very clearly stated, which talks about that terror attack on the Indian territory will not be tolerated. The government and the terrorists who, the terrorist attack and the government who supports it, they'll be treated as one as far as the targeting is concerned. India will no longer be deterred by the nuclear blackmail. So with these types of directions, I think we are very clear that we will continue to retaliate when it comes to terror strikes. There is a Raksha Mantri during his talk in Ran Samvad had stated about the triangle and the triangle of technology, strategy, and adaptability. I think on these three things we will continue to work so that we become a superior army in times to come to deal with the challenges ahead. War in the counter-terror dimension, in fact, puts to test the entire gambit of the time calculus. And let me assure all of you, as military, as Indian Army, we continue to maintain a high state of preparedness, and we are prepared to deliver as and when the need arises. And with that, I end my talk. Thank you so much, and Jai Hind.